Hello dear students, I am Dr. Madhuri Shende, lecturer at Advocate V.R. Manohar Institute of Diploma in Pharmacy, Vanadongri, Nagpur. I am here to explain the chapter Channels of Distribution, which is one of the topics of Drugstore and Business Management for Diploma in Pharmacy final year students. The term channels of distribution or trade channel signifies various trade links connecting the manufacturer or producers and the ultimate consumers or users. It includes both the producer, final user of the product, as well as mercantile agents and merchant middlemen engaged in the transfer of title of goods and services. But it does not include concerns such as banks, insurance companies, warehouses, railways, and other non-middlemen institutions which render marketing service but do not play any major role in negotiating purchases and sales. The distribution channels may be grouped under two major heads. Number one is direct selling, number two, indirect selling. Let us see direct selling. Direct selling is when the manufacturer sells his goods directly to the consumer. There is no intermediary between them. For example, marketing of industrial products like heavy machinery or the goods sold through mail order. So the goods are going directly from manufacturer to consumer without any middleman. The second distribution channel is indirect selling. In this case of indirect selling, there are one or two middlemen or intermediaries are involved in between the manufacturer and the consumer. For example, in the first case, the goods are being transferred from manufacturer to retailer and finally to consumer. In the second case, you can see the goods are going from manufacturer to wholesaler, from wholesaler to retailer, and from retailer to consumer. In the third case, manufacturer transfers the goods to distributor, from distributor to wholesaler, from wholesaler to retailer, and ultimately to consumers. The choice of the appropriate channels of distribution is not a simple job. While taking a decision in this regard, whether you need to choose direct selling or indirect selling, management should carefully consider the following factors. The first one is market considerations. The nature of the market is a key factor influencing the choice of channels of distribution. The following measures of the market should be analyzed to determine the channels. The first factor is consumer or industrial market. If the product is intended for industrial market or industrial users, the channel of distribution will be a short one. There is no need of retailers. The manufacturer can establish contacts with the industrial users by sending his agents. But in case of goods meant for consumers, retailers may have to be included in the channels of distribution. Second factor is number of potential customers. A large potential market is likely to put weight in favor of the use of middlemen. If the number of customers is relatively small, all the manufacturer may be able to sell directly by using his own sales force. Number C is size of order. Direct selling is convenient and economical where the customers place order in big lots as in case of industrial goods. But where the product is sold in small quantities, middlemen are used to distribute such goods. Number D, under market considerations, is customer buying habits and expectations. The customer buying habits, like the time he is willing to spend, the desire for credit, the preference of personal attention, and the preference for one-stop shopping significantly affect the choice of distribution channels. Number B is product considerations. The type and nature of the product influence the number and the type of middlemen to be chosen for distributing the product. The important factors with regard to the product are as follows. Number A, unit value. Usually, if the unit value of the product is lower and the turnover is higher, the channels of distribution will be longer. For instance, products like cosmetics, stationery, and small accessory equipments are distributed through agents, wholesalers, and retailers. Products of high value like jewelry and industrial machines are sold directly to the users. Number B is product line. A manufacturer manufacturing several products in the same line will sell directly or through retailers since it is economical. But a manufacturer with only one item may have to appoint the wholesalers and retailers to sell his product. Number C is standardized product. Standardized products can be distributed through longer channels because their brand names are very popular. But custom made and unstandardized products can more easily be sold directly by the producer to the user. Number D, technical nature. An industrial product which is highly technical is often distributed directly to the industrial users. Number E, bulk and weight. Bulky and heavy goods are distributed directly to the users in order to minimize the physical handling of the product because transportation of such products involves huge cost. Number F, perishability. The channels of distribution are short in case of products subject to physical or fashion perishability. Is company considerations, which is one of the factor of choice of channels of distribution. The nature and size of the business firm have an important impact on the selection of channels of distribution. Following factors are important in this regard. Number A, volume of production. A big manufacturer may find it profitable to sell directly to customers through his sales. If he is manufacturing a wide range of products, he may sell his products by opening retail outlets in different parts of the country. A small manufacturer can engage wholesalers and/or retailers to sell his products. Number B is financial resources. A financially strong company can distribute its products itself, employing its own sales force and opening retail outlets. But a weak company will have to use middlemen to sell its output. Number C is services provided by the sellers. The choice of channel of distribution is also influenced by the services provided by the manufacturers. Number D, desire for control of channels. A manufacturer who wants to control the distribution of his product will select a short channel of distribution. Middleman considerations. Certain factors related to the middleman which influence the channel selection are as follows. Number A, availability of desired middlemen. A manufacturer will rely on middlemen if they operate according to his desire. He may not like to entrust his products to a middleman who is handling competitive products. Number B, financial ability. A large manufacturer will generally select those middlemen who are financially strong and can provide credit facilities, to the customers and can pay their bills to the manufacturer regularly and promptly. Number C, attitude of middlemen. Sometimes middlemen are not prepared to carry a manufacturer's products because of the non-acceptability of his marketing policies. For instance, a retailer may want wholesaling agency for a particular region or a guarantee against price reduction if it is to handle the products of the manufacturer. Number D is sale potential. A manufacturer will generally select a channel offering the greatest potential sales volume over the long run. Number A is cost. The manufacturers also consider the cost of selling through alternative channels, but it does not mean that the high cost middlemen are excluded from the consideration. A manufacturer may select even a high cost middleman because he provides so many services to the customers which are not provided by other middlemen. For factors affecting the selection of channels of distribution. The first factor is selling efforts required to sell the product. For the products requiring special instructions or demonstrations for use, direct channel of distribution will be preferred and the products can be sold by manufacturer's salesmen. On the other hand, the products requiring no such efforts are distributed through indirect channels. Second factor is reputation of the product. The products which enjoy a good reputation in the market are best sold through indirect channels. Number 3, number of prospective consumers. For the products like heavy machinery, which are purchased by comparatively lower number of consumers and require labor for lifting or transporting, which increases running expenses, are better distributed by direct channels. Number 4 is trade area of the producer. If the producer's trade area is spread over a large geographical area, then direct channel of distribution are not suitable. Because the customers are widely scattered, middlemen are a must for quick distribution. On the other hand, if the producer caters to the needs of a local area, both the direct and indirect channels are used for distribution. Fifth factor is turnover rate of the product versus unit cost of the product. When the producer manufactures products with low unit cost but high turnover rate, the indirect channels can be preferred. In case of products with high unit cost but low turnover rate, the direct channel of distribution is preferred due to the high running expenses involved in indirect channels. Number 6 is demand period of the product. The company engaged in the products which are used throughout the year will require indirect channels of distribution since the production will precede demand and middlemen will be required to distribute it. Whereas for a seasonal product, direct channel of distribution will suffice. Number 7, financial standing of the producer. A producer with good financial standing will opt for direct channel, that is sales force of the producer, whereas a producer with poor financial standing will opt for indirect channels. Number 8, profit. A comparative statement of all the channels with regard to the sales potential and running expenses is prepared. One with high sales potential and low running expenses is preferred to fetch profit to the producer. Let us see the different types of middlemen. Who are middlemen? Middlemen are the persons who provide a link between the manufacturer and the consumer. They facilitate the purchase and sale of goods and services and also perform the marketing functions. They charge for the services, and to that extent, they are responsible for the increase in the cost of the product to the ultimate consumer or user. Despite this, the middleman constitutes an important link in the channels of distribution. There are two types of middlemen. Number one, functional middlemen. Number two, merchant middlemen. Let us see the first category of middlemen, that is functional middlemen. The functional middlemen are those intermediaries who perform various marketing functions without having any title to goods. That is, they help in transfer of goods from the hands of producer to those of consumers without acquiring any ownership rights. The following middlemen come under this category. Number one, brokers. Number two, commission agents. Number three, auctioneers. Number four, deal-creditor agents. The first type of functional middlemen is the brokers. Brokers are those agents who obtain neither the possession nor the ownership of the goods, and their only function is to bring the buyers and sellers together. They negotiate purchase and sale of goods on behalf of other parties. They are called selling agents if they are engaged by the seller, and buying agent if they are engaged by the buyer to negotiate the purchase of goods on their behalf. The role is over as soon as the buyer and the seller agrees as regards the terms of the purchase of sale of goods. The broker gets a percentage of commission on the business transacted by them. Another category of functional middlemen is commission agents. The commission agents sell goods on behalf of the seller. They physically possess the goods, negotiate the sale of goods, and make necessary arrangements for the transfer of title of the goods to consumers. They also perform the associated function of the marketing like warehousing, assortments, and assembling of goods and final disposal. A certain percentage of commission is paid to them for their services. The third type of functional middlemen are auctioneers. Auctioneers sell the goods on behalf of their principals of auction. In an auction, the auctioneer who has collected the goods from the sellers displays it for the would-be buyers and invite bids from them. The bid means the price which the buyer is willing to pay for the goods being auctioned. The buyer who makes the highest bid gets the goods provided the highest bid is at least equal to the minimum reserve price fixed for the purpose. Fourth type of functional middlemen are deal-creditor agents. Fourth type of functional middlemen are deal-creditor agents. Deal-creditor agents find buyers for the sellers and also guarantee the payment of the price of goods on their behalf. In case any buyer fails to pay, it is the deal-creditor agent who will pay on his behalf. For this additional responsibility, an extra commission is charged. Let us move on to second category of middlemen, that is merchant middlemen. Merchant middlemen work for profit. They acquire and transfer the title of goods in their own name. The middlemen covered under this category are the wholesalers and retailers. Let us see the first type of merchant middlemen, that is wholesalers. The term wholesaler applies to merchant middlemen who purchase and sell in large quantities. A wholesaler provides an important link between the manufacturer or producer and the retailer. He takes title to the goods. He handles and assumes marketing risks in the process of distribution of goods. He purchases in bulk and sells in small lots to the retailers or industrial users and is generally away from the ultimate consumers. A wholesaler dealing in pharmaceutical products requires a drug license from the health department of the concerned state government. A wholesaler sells the products to the chemists and physicians. A wholesaler is called a stockist if he deals in items manufactured by a single firm or company. The wholesalers may be classified into three different types, namely manufacturer wholesalers, number two retailer wholesalers, and number three wholesaler proper. Let us see the first type of wholesalers, manufacturer wholesaler. A manufacturer wholesaler undertakes the manufacture of goods along with distribution to retailers. He may also distribute the goods of other manufacturers. The purpose of combining these two functions is to reduce the overhead expenses per unit of product handled. Number two is retailer wholesalers. A retailer wholesaler combines with his business of wholesale the functions of retail trade. He purchases goods from the manufacturers in large quantities and sells them to retailers and ultimate consumers through his retail outlets. Third category of wholesalers is wholesaler proper or pure wholesaler. A pure wholesaler is a merchant who concentrates entirely on buying and selling in large lots and does not engage in manufacturing or retailing operations. He is also known as distributor or wholesaler proper. Functions of wholesalers. The first function of wholesaler is buying and assembling. The wholesalers make an estimate of the demand for the goods and purchase and assemble different varieties of goods from different manufacturers spread throughout the country. They also undertake import of goods from different countries. Second function, storage. Wholesalers keep the goods assembled by them in their warehouses to supply them to retailers whenever they require. They relieve the manufacturers and retailers from the botheration of making storage arrangements. Number three, transportation. Wholesalers make transportation arrangement from the premises of manufacturers to their godowns and from the godown to the retail stores. They often maintain their own fleet of vehicles for this purpose. Fourth function of wholesalers is grading and packaging. Wholesalers grade the goods according to certain standards which they have purchased from different manufacturers. Some manufacturers also give brand names to graded products to convince the consumers or industrial users about the quality of products they deal in. They also undertake the packaging of goods in convenient lots. Fifth function of wholesalers is financing. Wholesalers provide financial accommodation to both the manufacturers and retailers. They generally purchase goods on a cash basis from the manufacturer and sometimes also give advance to the manufacturers. Thus, the manufacturers need not wait till their products are sold. The wholesalers help the retailers by selling the goods on credit. Sixth function is risk taking. Wholesalers assume a large number of risks in the process of distribution of goods. These risks may occur on account of changes in prices and demands, spoilage of goods, and bad debts. Thus, they undertake many marketing risks which would have been undertaken by the manufacturers and retailers. Let us see if wholesalers can be eliminated or wholesalers have to be kept in the as a middleman in the chain. Wholesalers should be eliminated because middlemen are parasites growing fat at the cost of producers and consumers. But on the other hand, it is felt that in the absence of wholesalers, retailers and consumers may have to face a lot of problems. Let us see for the arguments for the elimination of wholesalers. Why wholesalers should be eliminated. The first point, the producer pays commission to the wholesalers which increase the retail price of goods. So the existence of wholesalers leads to increase in prices. Secondly, the producer can sell their products to consumers through advertisements without the help of wholesalers. Thirdly, certain producers have started opening their own retail outlet at various places for direct selling to consumers at reasonable prices. Example, Dabur, Hamdard, etc. Fourth point is wholesalers are only interested in the sale of popular products. Therefore, new products are not available with the wholesalers. Number fifth, due to fast means of transport, the retailers can easily buy required quantity of goods from producers directly. Sixth point for arguments for the elimination of wholesalers is nowadays the departmental stores and large scale retail shops are getting popularity in big cities. Such types of establishment make direct purchase from producers. Seventh point, sometimes wholesalers create the scarcity in the market by hoarding the products. Due to shortage of supply, the prices get increased in the market. Thus, wholesalers exploit the consumers by charging very high prices. Eighth point, cooperative societies are increasing day by day. These societies earn less rate of profit and sell better quality goods at reasonable price by purchasing directly from producers. Now let us see for the arguments against elimination of wholesalers. That is why wholesalers cannot be eliminated. First point, producers produce goods for future consumption, but it is not possible for them to estimate the demand in future. This information is supplied by wholesalers because they have a well-knit network of retailers. If wholesalers are eliminated, the retailers will not be able to purchase goods on credit. Similarly, producers will not be able to get advances from wholesalers. Hence, producers as well as retailers will have to face financial difficulties. Third point, wholesalers provides various services to the retailers regarding marketing of goods which may not be possible for the retailers to perform it. Fourth point, wholesalers provide free shop delivery facility to the retailers which may not be possible in the absence of wholesalers. Fifth point is wholesalers provide market information to the producers, which may not be available in the absence of wholesalers. Sixth point, if wholesalers are eliminated, the more capital is required by the producers in order to provide credit facilities to the retailers. Seventh point, in the absence of wholesalers, the retailers would purchase goods in small quantity from the producers. This will lead to increase in expenses on packing and transport, etc. Therefore, although wholesaler has become a subject of severe criticism, yet keeping in view the important services rendered by him, it is not desirable to eliminate the wholesalers. They are important link between the manufacturers and consumers. The second type of merchant middlemen are the retailers. Retailing includes all activities directly related to the sale or sales of goods or services to the ultimate consumer for personal use, non-business use. A retailer is a middleman between wholesaler and actual consumers. The retailer sells the goods to the consumers and maintains an intimate contact with the wholesalers, manufacturers, and consumers. The retailer dealing in pharmaceutical trade is known as a chemist or a pharmacist. Functions of retailers. First function, wide choice to consumers. Retailer keeps a stock of various items according to the needs of consumers. The retailer is supposed to know the different kinds of goods likely to be demanded by his customers and also to know the sources from where the same could be obtained. Second function is ready stock. Retailer keeps a ready stock of all the goods so that he is able to meet the demand of his customers at all the times. Third function is transport. Retailers perform transportation function by carrying the goods from the wholesalers and handing them over to the ultimate consumers. Sometimes they also provide free home delivery of products to the customers. The fourth function of retailer is grading. Normally, grading of goods is done either by the producers or sometimes by the wholesalers. However, retailer does grading of those goods which have been left ungraded by the manufacturers and wholesalers. Fifth function is risk bearing. Retailers have to maintain a reasonable stock of goods. They bear the risk of loss of goods by fire, theft, or deterioration as long as they are not sold. Sixth function is financing. They provide financial help to consumers by selling them the goods on credit. Seventh function is market research. Retailers are in close contact with their customers. They know the tastes, likes and dislikes of the customers. They pass on such information to the wholesalers for onward transmission to the manufacturers is concerned. Eighth function, sales promotion. Retailers display the goods in show windows and on counter for the information of customers. Thus, retailer helps to promote the sale of goods manufactured by a particular manufacturer who has launched the sales promotion campaigns. Let us see what are different kinds of retail distribution or types of retailers. Retailing institutions may be broadly classified on the basis of their scale of operation into small-scale retailers and large-scale retailers. So retailers are divided into small scale retailers and large scale retailers. Small scale retailers are further subdivided into mobile or itinerant retailers and fixed shop retailers. Examples of mobile or itinerant retailers are peddlers and hawkers, street. Coming to the first type of retailers, that is small scale retailers. As I've said earlier, small scale retailers are of two types, itinerant retailers and the fixed shop retailers. So let us move to the first type of small scale retailers, that is itinerant retailers. Itinerant retailers do not operate from fixed business premises but moves from place to place for selling goods in small lots to the consumers. They generally work with a very small capital investment and they mainly deal in low priced commodities of daily use. The following are different types of itinerant retailers. Number one, peddlers and hawkers. Number two, street traders. Number three, market traders. So, the first type of itinerant retailers is peddlers and hawkers. They move from door to door in residential localities to sell their goods. The goods sold by them are generally small and cheap, such as vegetables, fruits, toys, household articles, etc. Second type of itinerant retailers are the street traders. Street traders operate near the busy places like railway stations, bus stops, cinema halls, etc. They set up their small shops temporarily. They sell their products at relatively low prices. They offer a wide variety of articles of common use. They generally deal in one particular line of products. Third type of itinerant retailers are market traders. Market traders keep on moving from place to place to sell their goods at weekly, fortnightly, or monthly bazaars or at annual fair. They also operate in the vacant front verandas of fixed shops when the shops are closed. Coming to second type of small scale retailers, that is fixed shop retailers. The example of fixed shop retailers, number one is street stalls. Stalls are located at street crossings or in the busy streets. A stall is an improvised structure, a table or a temporary platform to display the goods for sale. The stall holders generally deal in cheaper products like toys, pens, hosiery products, etc. Second type of fixed shop retailers are the general stores. General stores are set up in residential areas and they stock all kinds of products needed by the local residents for their daily use. A general store is owned and managed by a sole proprietor who keeps personal contact with his customers. The general store may be a single line store or a multi line store. A single line store specializes in selling only products of a single line. For instance, medical stores deal in medicines only and stationery stores deal in stationery items only. Third type of fixed shop retailers is specialty stores. Specialty stores take the specialization practiced by single line stores one step further. If a shop selling ready-made garments, that is single line store, deals in children's garments only, it will be called as specialty shop. Specialty shops are generally located at central places only so as to attract a large number of customers. Fourth type of fixed shop retailers is second-hand goods shop. These stores deal in second-hand or used goods like books, clothes, furniture, etc. Persons with modest means can make purchases from such stores. Now let us move to large-scale retail shop. Retailing on a large scale brings with it several of the economics associated with the large-scale business organization in general. The more important among them are better and more effective advertising, better organized selling, increased turnover, lower overheads per unit of commodity sold, and improved management of the sales effort under the guidance of experts. Large-scale retail shops deal in all kinds of goods, essential as well as luxury goods, cheap as well as expensive. The capital investment of such retailers are relatively large as compared to small-scale shops. Examples of large-scale retailers are departmental stores, multiple shops, mail-order houses, consumers cooperative store, supermarkets, high purchase and installment shops. The first example of large-scale retailers is retail departmental store. A departmental store may be defined as a retail institution that handles wide variety of merchandise grouped into well-defined departments for purposes of promotion, service, accounting and control. A departmental store is a large-scale retail organization having a number of departments under the same roof. Every department confines its activities to a particular line of business. These departments are centrally organized and controlled to form a single establishment. The management of all the departments is centralized, but the stock of each department is handled separately. Advantages of retail departmental store. The main object of a departmental store is to satisfy customers' needs at one place. It sells a large number of products through different departments to the customers. It has gained popularity because of the following advantages. The first advantage, a departmental store is generally located at a central place of a city. It is easily accessible to the customers. Second advantage, customers can purchase almost all the goods they require from a single store. This saves their time and effort as they need not move from one stop to another for the purchase of various products. Number third advantage, they provide a number of services to their customers including recreation, free home delivery and credit facilities. That is why they attract a large number of customers. Fourth advantage of retail departmental store is a retail departmental store enjoy the economics of a large-scale operations. Overhead expenses are spread over a number of departments, enabling the stores to keep the prices of products within the reach of customers. Number fifth, a departmental store can make use of different advertising media than is possible for small retailers. They can also afford window display, which serves as a self-advertising medium. Number six, it can afford to employ competent salespersons to attend to its customers. This leads to efficiency and increased customer satisfaction. Disadvantages of retail departmental store. Number one, it offers a number of services to the customers, the cost of which is ultimately borne by the customers. Number two, expensive window dressing, interior decoration, and advertising increase overhead expenses. Number three, a departmental store is generally located at a central place, which creates problems of traffic congestion and parking. Number four, the sales are controlled by employees. So the owner of departmental store cannot establish personal contact with his customers. Number 5, huge capital is required to establish a departmental store. The costs of running its operations are also too high. In addition, it also undertakes greater risk of loss due to fire, price fluctuation, and change in fashion because it keeps huge stocks of various items in one building. Second example of large-scale retailers is multiple shops or chain stores. A multiple shop system may be defined as a system of branch shops operating under a centralized management and dealing in similar lines of products. A single business firm opens a number of branch shops which are situated at different localities in the city or different parts of the country. The main object is to provide shopping facilities near the residence of the would-be customers. All the branches are centrally controlled and have uniformity of operation. Each branch deals in similar line of goods. Each multiple shop system has a head office whose decisions are passed on to all its branches. The price of all the items is fixed by the head office and the same is charged at every branch. The supply of items to various branches are made direct from head office. Examples of multiple shop system are DCM, Bata, NTC, Dabur, Hamdard, etc. Advantages of multiple shops or chain stores. First advantage, this system enables a manufacturer to manufacture products on a large scale and sell directly to consumers through different retail outlets. Second, all branches of a multiple shop are of uniform style and design and are distinctive in appearance. People can easily identify each of them as belonging to a particular manufacturing enterprise. Multiple shops attract the customers in a better way by window display and centralized advertising. They are generally located in different parts of the city and the customers can buy from the nearest shop or branch. Number 3, the fixed price and standard quality of goods helps in winning the confidence of the customers. Fourth, the shortage of supplies at one branch can easily be met by transfer from another branch having a surplus stock. Fifth advantage, there is a diversification of risks. Unsold stock of one store can be transferred to others to prevent loss or damage. It is also easier to shift a store from one place to another. Thus, there is a greater flexibility in operation. Number 6, since multiple shops system provides a direct link between the manufacturer and the consumers, products can be sold to the consumers at lower prices because of less distribution cost. Disadvantages of multiple shops or chain stores. It cannot offer a wide variety of products to customers because the range is limited. Number 2, there is lack of free home delivery service and credit facility to customers. This discourages a certain type of people. Number 3, since products are of standardized nature, they cannot be adjusted to suit the needs of a local market. Number 4, there is lack of interest on the part of the paid employees of the store. There is no motivation for the employees to increase the sales and there is no personal touch between the manufacturer and the employees. The employees are also not able to give personal attention to the customers. Next example of large scale retailers is mail order business or mail order house. Mail order houses are retailing enterprises which carry on business through mail. Mail order business is known as selling through post for the retailer and shopping by post for the consumer. Under this, the retailers contact the prospective customers through sort of advertising. Advertising is carried through the press or by sending leaflets and catalogs giving the necessary details about the product. Mail order houses maintain mailing lists of potential customers. They send the literature about their products through mail. They also mail reply paid cards to the prospective customers. When they receive orders, they will procure the goods and dispatch them to the customers, usually by VPP, that is value payable post. Sometimes the goods are sent by railway parcel and the railway receipt is forwarded to the customer by VPP. Under it, the goods are delivered to the addresses on the payment of the price to the post office, which remits it to the sender of goods. There are three main types of mail order business. Number one, manufacturer mail order house, departmental mail order business, middleman mail order business. The first type of mail order business is manufacturer mail order house. These are established by the manufacturers for selling the goods manufactured by them directly to consumers, thus eliminating the middlemen. Second type, departmental mail order business. This is only a department of a departmental store executing orders received from outside. Number third, middleman mail order business. In this case, the business house is not engaged in production or wholesale selling, but concerned only with the sale of goods by mail. It purchases the required goods partly on the receipt of orders and partly in anticipation of orders from the wholesalers and dispatches the same by mail to the consumers. Advantages of mail order business. Number one, the buyer need not travel a long distance to reach the retail store to get the delivery of goods. The mail order business houses can be located in less expensive localities. Goods can be procured after receiving orders from the customers. Number four, the post office acts as the carrier of goods and the collector of sale proceeds. The chances of bad debts are still. Disadvantages of mail order business. Number one, there is no personal contact between the seller and the buyer. The buyer does not get any opportunity to inspect the goods before purchasing them. If goods are sold on sale on return basis, this will result in wastage of cost incurred on postage. Number two, goods mailed by post are costlier because the customers have to pay for postal expenses also. Number three, the customers are deprived of other services like credit facility from the sellers. Sometimes there is a delay in dispatching the goods. Number four, mail order business is not suitable for certain agricultural products. Number fifth, there are chances of cheating by a dishonest trader. Number six, the illiterate customers cannot get the benefit of this system. Next example of large-scale retailers is consumers cooperative stores. Consumers cooperative store is organized under the Cooperative Societies Act and is owned and operated by the consumers themselves. The capital of the store is provided by the shareholders. The membership of the store is voluntary. The aim of the store is to provide service to the members and not the maximization of profit. The establishment of Consumers Cooperative Store is an attempt to eliminate middlemen who increase the cost of product for the consumers. They buy in large quantities directly from the manufacturers and sell them to the consumers at reasonable prices. Hence, since there are no middlemen, the consumers get products of good quality at cheaper rates. The profits earned by the Consumers Cooperative Store during a year are utilized for strengthening its reserve fund, for declaring a bonus to the members according to the purchases made by them. A part of the profit may also be utilized for social purpose. These stores are usually managed by honorary members, but sometimes sales managers may also be appointed. Advantages of consumer cooperative stores. Number one, it is easier to form a cooperative society. It attracts a large number of members because the value of its shares is nominal. The liability of the members of a cooperative store is limited. Number three, cooperative societies are democratically managed because every member has one vote, irrespective of the number of shares held by him. Number four, considerable state patronage is extended to the cooperative societies. Number five, a cooperative store purchases goods directly from the manufacturers and distributes them on retail basis to the members. Number six, the consumers get better quality goods at lower prices as middlemen's profit are eliminated. Number seventh advantage of consumers cooperative store is it promotes thrift among members and increases their economic security. Number eight, the consumers have complete control over the society running the store. Thus, the genuine needs of the majority of the consumers will be promptly met by such stores. Number nine, the overhead expenses are reduced because unnecessary expenditure on advertisement and decoration of store is not required. Disadvantages of consumers cooperative store. Number one, there is lack of initiative among the people to form cooperative societies to protect their interests. Number two, there is lack of ability, experience, and business training on the part of honorary members who are running the stores. Number three, they face a shortage of funds since their membership is limited. Due to shortage of funds, small-scale operations, experts, and trained personnel cannot be employed. Number four, the affairs of the store are managed by the members themselves who may not be able to provide competent management to the store. Number fifth, it has also been seen that members of the store do not patronize them regularly because of which they are not able to operate successfully. Number six, generally speaking, there is much to be desired as regards the loyalty of the members. Next example of large-scale retailers is hire purchase trading houses, which is also known as hire purchase shop. Under hire purchase system, the buyer gets the immediate possession of the goods without paying the full price for them. He only pays part of the purchase price at the time of entering into the agreement with the seller and agrees to pay the balance in installments which may be monthly, quarterly or yearly. An essential feature of hire purchase system selling is that the buyer gets only the possession of the goods, but the ownership of the goods passes to him only after the last installment has been paid. In other words, the buyer is only the hirer until he pays the final installment. Installments paid by him are treated as mere hire charges. However, when the last installment is paid, all the installments are adjusted against the sale price of the goods and the interest thereon. If the buyer makes a default in paying any installment, the seller has the right to take back the goods. Because of this, many people do not show much interest in purchasing goods under the hire purchase system. Advantages of hire purchase trading houses. Number 1. The system provides facility to purchase costly goods such as houses, refrigerators, TV sets, cars, scooters, etc. to middle class people in easy installments. Number 2. The small scale and medium scale manufacturers can install the required machinery and tools without paying the total amount for it. Number 3. The system helps to increase the sale of costly and non-essential luxury articles because it tempts a very large number of people to buy the same. Number 4. Even people who have enough money to pay at once as price of the desired article may prefer to purchase the requirements under hire purchase system so as to invest their money elsewhere to earn more profit. Disadvantages of hire purchase trading houses. Number 1. People may be tempted by installment plans to buy things which they cannot afford. Number 2. The traders dealing in hire purchase have to arrange a large capital to finance their business. Number 3. The goods purchased on hire purchase basis are costlier than its actual price because the hire purchase price includes the interest on the unpaid installments. The last example of large-scale retailers is one-price shops. One-price shops or fixed-price chain stores are organized on the same lines as multiple shop retail organizations. Their distinguishing feature is one price. They are one-price shops in the sense that almost everything sold at these shops is priced uniformly. Besides, one price also implies fixed prices and those stores therefore allow no scope for haggling. Price shops are shops deal in low price daily need goods. All the products are sold at the same price. Characteristics of one price shops. Number 1. Different products are available at the same price. The goods dealt in care of low price and meant for common people. Number 3. Goods are sold on cash basis. Number 4. There is no bargaining between the seller and the purchaser as the prices of the commodities are fixed. Number 5. The shops are usually situated in the busy shopping centers near railway stations or bus stands. Advantages of one price shops. Number 1. These shops are very helpful in catering to the needs of the poor people as goods are available at low prices. Number 2. The cost of operation and advertisement is minimum. Number 3. There is no risk of bad debts as the goods are sold on cash basis. Number 4. Lesser capital is needed to start a one price shop. Number 5. These shops avail of the economies of large scale purchasing. Number 6. Convenience of choice is provided to the customers on account of variety of products in which one price shops deal. Disadvantages of one price shops. Usually cheaper and low quality goods are sold by these shops. Number 2. These shops are not suitable for rich people. Number 3. The loud voice with which the hawkers sell their products in different localities disturbs the people. Number 4. The margin of profit is low in case of one price shops. Number 5. Minimum and unscientific advertising is another drawback of these shops. So dear students, with this we conclude with the chapters of channels of distribution, and I hope you have got every detail of the chapter. So thank you very much.